Okay, thanks. Welcome back. We're now going to move quickly to our Investing in Cancer Therapy Startup panel. I want to thank you for being here, panelists. This session, as you might expect, is going to be focused more on how a cancer therapy startup can raise money and what the environment looks like and how it might differ from other types of companies that you might see in the space. So I want to welcome our panelists. We have Jack Doty from InnoCom Bio New Venture Fund, Jennifer Carter, I think it's MedZone, is that right?
Well, on the investor side, I'm at Sandbox Industries.
Sorry, Sandbox Industries. Daniel Tail from Hunniwell VC, Jonathan George from Flare, and Shen Zhao from 3D Medicines. Although we seem to be having trouble getting Shen's video to start, but I'm sure he'll sign in soon. So thanks for being here. I guess I'd like to start off. I think typically our attendees, and I'm going to do a poll at the end of this presentation, tend to be startup entrepreneurs. So I think it's really useful if they get an idea as to who you are and what you invest in. I'm going to start with the upper left corner of my screen and say, Daniel, can you talk a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Sure. Thank you, Roger, and thanks for the opportunity to participate in this panel. My name is Daniel Teo. I'm a managing partner and founder at Hunniwell Ventures. We are a West Coast VC firm and with a AUM of about $100 million at the moment. Currently, our funds are focused in medtech, specifically in surgical innovations. That said, we are also very interested in biotech, and so there's nothing, and we're tracking that space very closely. So there's nothing to say that we might not invest in biotech at some point in the future. So very glad to be here. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Daniel. Jennifer?
Yeah, hi, everybody. I'm Jennifer Carter. I'm both the founder and CEO of a startup right now and a serial entrepreneur, and I'm a venture partner at Sandbox Industries, which is the managing partner for the Blue Venture Fund, which is the fund for Blue Cross Blue Shield. And I am working in their clinical fund, which is just launched and looking more at diagnostics and med tech and some data, and AI type technologies.
You're going to love our presentation section.
Great.
Okay, Jack.
Thank you for having me, Roger, and a pleasure to be here. I'm the CEO of InnoCom Bio Equities, to get the full name out, Inc. That's the managing investment manager, and we have one fund of the same name except Fund 1. We are in what is called an emerging manager. We are putting together the fund now, are working carefully with the SBA for their SBIC, the Small Business Investment Company, working for an accrual debenture to bring money to 5 of our 11 portfolio companies, which do have critical technologies for the Department of Defense. We are seeking a couple more, so I'm looking forward to seeing the presentations later. Our fund amount is declared to be $250 million when it gets funded. It would be more than that, of course, with this SBIC / the matching funds there. Thank you.
Okay, great. Hey, Jonathan?
Yeah, great. Thank you so much, Roger, and pleasure to be here and joined by a great panel. So I am John George, a senior associate at Flare Capital Partners. We at Flare are a dedicated healthcare VC fund that focuses on healthcare technology and tech-enabled services. Invest in seed, Series A, Series B, so early stage investors, and typically look for healthcare technology and services companies that are looking to disrupt some of the more traditional business models. In many ways, we'll focus on value-based care components of care delivery. Just under $1 billion in total capital under management. We're on our 3rd fund now. Early investors in firms in companies like Iora Health, Somatis on the value-based care side, Health Verity, Aetion on the data and pharma side. So pleasure to be here and excited to jump in.
Okay, great. Shanna, you're on mute, but if you can say a few words.
This is Shen Xiao. I'm a chief medical officer from 3D Medicine. I run the clinical development and regulatory affairs but we had several cooperation with the different.
I think we've lost
And
Shen.
look forward to hearing you guys' discussion. Can you hear me now?
Yep, yep.
Hello?
Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I look forward to have this active discussion with you guys. I'm around the clinical development and the regulatory affairs. So, but we did have a try to work with different biotech companies, collaboration from the investor perspective too.
Don't get in an accident. All right, thanks. And well, let me kind of jump right in.
Okay, thank you.
All righty. So let me jump right into it for our panel. The big question, of course, everybody has here is what's hot, and I'm curious as to what you think. I mean, what do you think is, kind of the biggest, best thing? And keep in mind, our audience here tends to be startup entrepreneurs, and they're always interested in what the investors are investing in. So if you've got any comments on that, we'd love to hear it.
I might make a comment real quick, Roger.
Okay.
We're currently very interested in Department of Defense critical technologies. We have currently 5, one of which is, for example, a temporary blood replacement for a soldier who is wounded and can have the blood put in by a medic. That product happens to be blood type agnostic, and it also doesn't require refrigeration, so it can be carried in the pack of a medic. That's one of our items. Another one might be a plasma that takes care of all bacteria and viruses and mold and so forth in a wound. And that does not happen in the backpack, of course. That happens in the field hospital or in the ambulance. So we have 3 others like that. No reason to go into it. We are interested in those products because the Department of Defense is interested, and that's coming through our small business investment company. Currently, we're just finishing up the licensing on that. Thank you.
Interesting. So Daniel, I know you do med tech. So what's hot in med tech in this space now?
Yeah, I'll comment just on the medtech side and leave the biotech to my more learned colleagues and panelists here. But in the medtech space, minimally invasive is the name of the game, right? Laparoscopic, endoscopic solutions in the past, cancer treatment, you have to do open surgery. Now, you want it minimally invasive. And in this space, there are 3 main areas of focus. One is, of course, improved visualization. So when the surgeons go in, they want to be able to see better and be able to detect better. This is not just in the visible light spectrum, but also employing different kinds of frequencies, different modalities to be able to detect cancer margins, for instance, so that they know exactly where to cut and minimize collateral damage. So that's one. The other is, of course, robotics, which provides enhanced precision, dexterity, and maneuverability to overcome some pretty challenging anatomical locations, so such as particularly in the GI tract, prostate, colorectal, gynecological cancers. Those are particularly difficult to get to, and robotics can make it a lot safer and a lot easier for surgeons. And then the third is, of course, if you don't need to make an incision, why do you want to do that? So natural orifice, transluminal endoscopic surgery on notes is clearly a area where there's a huge demand because you can minimize external scarring. You don't need to make any kind of incision at all. And if you do need to make an incision, then single incisions are the way to go. So any startups who have thought of a clever way to solve, to do minimally invasive surgery with a single incision, will receive a lot of attention from investors.
Daniel, do we have robot surgery yet, or have you seen companies doing that?
There are robotic surgeries in the colorectal space and in the GI space, but there's still a lot of room for improvement. They're still very clunky. They're still very expensive, and I think the way to go will be to try and make them modular. I think the mistake that we've learned in the past, I call it a mistake, but it's really how we all learn and evolve, right? But in the past, the robots, we tried to be all things to everyone, to be multifunctional, and these tend to be very clunky, very expensive devices. but making them modular, specific for a particular procedure, that's probably the way to go. And it's an easier path to regulatory approval too.
Great. Anybody else like to comment? Jonathan, what are you mostly excited about right now?
Yeah, so on the services side and thinking about some of the risk enablement, care coordination, I think that's really exciting as we think about value-based care and some of the future care delivery models and payment structures that could be put in place to change how we think about delivering cancer care, really thinking about like filling gaps that are critical, maybe traditionally not reimbursed. So that, less on the biopharma or med device side, how are folks enabling that risk and creating a platform that thinks more holistically about a patient burden, navigating the ins and outs of cancer education, those components that enable some of that shift, and really ultimately reduce the total cost of care to prevent, further prevalence of illness, better treatments overall, the behavioral health aspects of a patient's care. So that's exciting. I think, of course, there's a ton of activity in diagnostics as a form of treatment. And so getting earlier, seeing the advent of digital health technologies or just technologies in general, like AI and ML, increasing and improving the way we diagnose cancer, thinking about how the treatment can be shifting into the home and some of those diagnostic tools that can be used in the home, and also therapies that can be delivered in the home, like home-based infusions. And then there's definitely a lot of activity in data platforms on the drug discovery and clinical trial side from our perspective. It's really hard to integrate with the existing systems to conduct clinical trials, create drug discovery and connect all of these disparate data sources. And so we're seeing a ton of activity in new ways that traditionally the point of care and data that gets captured at the point of care during treatment to enable better clinical trials. You're seeing these platforms that are helping enable and connect that data with pharma companies in the drug discovery and clinical trial space, sometimes moving as early as, clinical trial design. So that's really exciting in some of those areas too.
Jonathan, let me ask you a really hard question about that, because everything you just said, especially drug discovery and the data platforms, what you said, you see a lot of platforms that don't communicate with each other. So it seems to me that you must be very difficult as an investor to pick a winner. What do you look for in a company, in such a, what I think is a fragmented, decentralized space?
I think how those folks are there's so many different ways in which pharma companies, CROs are buying and outsourcing some of this data capture and insights, and how you've seen the evolution of a couple companies that have been able to sell successfully but not scale to the size of which is a really large company. And you see some of those growing pains. So distribution is a big piece we look for. How are you ultimately selling to the CRO? Are you integrating with some of these other folks that are going and packaging up different aspects of data, managing the patient engagement, managing the consents, which can be a huge issue? But ultimately, how are you getting and selling into these CROs? Are you doing it yourself? Are you partnering with others? And it's really tricky. And then ultimately, tokenization of patient data, making sure there's the security and privacy aspects are all covered. I think it's really tricky and hard to get all of that right and connect all of those things together. And so you're seeing some of these platforms come out. And I think one of our big questions is, and we work with people to, a lot of our strategic LPs, half of our capital comes from strategic healthcare organizations. And we actually, we ask them, like, how are you guys thinking about buying this? Do you have the budget for it? And oftentimes there's so many options out there. It's really about, can you get the distribution and sell and see that recurring contract come up, and how do you really penetrate that? So we focus a lot on the distribution and how those folks are selling into CROs and what that means for repeatability of it.
Gotcha. Jennifer, we haven't heard from you yet on this topic. What are you most interested in right now?
Yeah, I think it depends which hats I'm wearing, I suppose. But I would say I would echo a lot of what John has said. You know, those are things that we see a lot of. I mean, there's certainly a lot of diagnostic companies that are trying to do early detection. You know, and I think what's interesting, I mean, you know, certainly in the cancer space, but we also see those in other disease areas as well. You know, work in minimally residual disease, opportunities around not only, you know, molecular diagnostics, but also imaging. I think, you know, there's a lot of work there. And then, of course, things that are impacting, you know, I think a lot of what John was saying, which is, you know, is it John or Jonathan? I'm sorry.
John, yeah.
Thank you. And, you know, ways to impact pricing and cost are, of course, always critical as, you know, we work strategically with the payers as well. But I would say I have a lot of, you know, there's quite a bit of overlap with what John has mentioned. You know, I think it's interesting. I mean, I think, you know, what you see and what actually will have an impact. I mean, I think that, you know, for entrepreneurs on the phone, you have to really think about, I think as John was saying, you know, distribution, uptake. I think investors right now, because of the environment that has existed, are really looking for how you're getting traction and how you're going to grow, who's going to buy the product and things like that. It's hard in those early stages without points.
You know, on that point, it's my perception that in this particular space, compared to like all the other kinds of technology companies I work with, it just seems a lot harder for a new innovation to get out there and gain market acceptance. Is that true? And I mean, what are the roadblocks or I guess we'll call them friction points for companies that are entering the space? Is it regulatory? Is it the physician resistance? Is it just the system, the way it's set up? Is it insurance? Anybody want to comment on that?
I could make a comment if you'd like, Roger.
Sure.
The delay we face, and it's a long delay, you know, it's 6 to 8, maybe 10 years, is all regulatory. The steps through the FDA are considerable. That's the big barrier. As far as it being picked up, we work with, for the takeout, we work with Big Pharma for our kinds of products. And we have I should have mentioned 3 cancer products, and those are already, we're talking to the Mercks and the J&Js. So I think the delay comes from the FDA process to make sure that on one side it's safe. Preclinical ought to do that, but it has to be tested with a lot of human beings to make sure nobody dies. The other part of it has to have has to be efficacy, and it has to work. And so that also takes a lot of testing. And I think you had in the previous panel some comments to that. Thank you.
Right. Anybody else want to weigh in on that?
Yeah, I can just build off that piece. I think security and privacy, provenance of data. I think from my perspective in looking at the companies trying to build platforms to enter, you know, the data aspects that we're talking about, security of the data and provenance of the data. Is this data actually usable at the end of the day? I think there's a lot of digital solutions that are being pulled together and unique models that are formed. I mean, we've seen decentralized clinical trials over the past few years touted as the holy grail. We're expected to see further penetration, and a lot of these clinical trials, shift to a decentralized platform. It didn't happen, and so I think, making sure that the data is usable, the provenance of the data is real when you're trying to integrate and find these new datas, either from the EMR or at point of sales at a Walmart or a CVS, and how those things ultimately can be usable in the clinical trials and submissions. But then also, and we just mentioned it too, the buying behavior of pharma and CROs. I think the demand can shrink and move very quickly, as we've seen over the last year here, and it's hard to understand exactly where those dollars will flow and whether they're going to be willing to invest in a unique, innovative way of doing things versus the status quo. They have to prioritize those dollars. And so if the demand shrinks and that moves, it can really impact investors' willingness to underwrite and ultimately size of business that they think is realistic that can be big enough to achieve like venture-like scales.
I would really emphasize Jonathan's point about the size of the market. Big pharma is only interested in big market, and then the idea is what penetration would our portfolio companies' products have for that large market. If it's large enough, then there's not an issue. They have the sales and marketing organization in place. It's just a matter of them picking up the product and putting it into their sales organization.
Gotcha. So I want to remind our audience that if you have questions, go ahead and type them in the Q&A box. We'll, I'm going to open it up here pretty quickly since we're coming towards the end. Shen, if you're in a place where you can turn your camera on, we'd love to get your view on this, especially from the perspective of where you are geographically. There we are.
Sure.
Go ahead, Shen.
Yeah. So right now, well, our company is a China-based company. So we are, work with different companies, in US and also in China and other countries. Yeah. So I'll be happy to answer questions on the regular issues. Yeah.
Okay. So, let me just start the Q&A here. Like, we've been hearing a lot about artificial intelligence lately. And it seems to have become really big in almost every industry, every application, etc. So can you give me your view? How is AI changing the companies you're looking at, what you're investing in? I guess what the future looks like in particular in 2024. Anybody want to jump on that?
Okay.
So my company.
Go for it, guys. Yeah.
Shen, we'll let you go. So go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. So my company is not an invest company. Is a biotech company. Maybe we have a little bit different background compared to other experts here. So we are using AI right now. The most time we use AI generally for the data management, data transportation, and also for the protocol preparation. When we write a new clinical study protocol, we can use the AI to search some different background information for clinical protocol design. That's most part we really use. So although I apologize, this is the investors discussion, but we are the biotech company, so we try to get some investors for us.
Okay. Thanks for being here, Shen. So Jennifer, what were you going to say about this?
I just think, I see a lot of companies that say they use AI because I think, you sort of have to say you use AI, but, and I believe that they will use AI eventually, but small data sets and doing analytics on small data sets is not really AI. And having, and it's, you really have to look at what you're calling AI in order for it to be, to be considered AI. And it really takes a lot of data. It takes, high-powered algorithms. I mean, there's really a lot that goes into it. And I think that, it's easy to throw around. Jack, it looked like you wanted to say something, so it'd be, please.
I was just concurring what you were saying there, Jennifer, that you have to represent that you have AI in today's market. It is the fashionable IT product. I started my career out with IBM, which at that time, that's a number of years ago, was the IBM computer referred to as the electronic brain. In other words, it was AI, and that's what computers are. Now what we have is this huge amount of data, the capacity to handle a huge amount of data, and these algorithms that control it. I think that's wonderful, but I don't think it's a radical change, as radical as it's being represented to be.
Yeah. Agree.
I know you're nodding. I'm sorry. Jennifer, did you say something?
No, I was just nodding.
Any other comments on this from anybody?
Yeah, I totally agree with both. And I guess maybe just a couple other examples of, examples where this is already happening today. There's a lot of AI being integrated into businesses that are large and have data and are thinking about using it and automating aspects of it. So would echo the sentiment around, I think it's like a table stakes. A lot of folks are starting with AI and trying to build these, but you need that base. But I think like just calling out a few examples of AI that I've seen on the services side, digital health side, there's AI for prior authorizations that's happening. There's a lot of questions around legality and some lawsuits that are coming from it, but there's no doubt in anyone's mind that AI will continue to be helping automate and reduce costs in the system through prior authorizations. Clinical prognostics on the care delivery side, and clinical decision support for doctors. It's tough. It's the one that everyone will continue to chase for a while, but there's a lot of companies that are using large amounts of data to start to think about how they, support doctors there. And then, large language models and the advent of OpenAI and these large language models, I think you're seeing companies buy and companies spin out assets of their data to, in theory and theoretically, build these large language models using AI off of the data that's existing and out there. So startups are going to continue to struggle, starting from a small scale, and if they want to build out these big AI first solutions. And so it definitely needs to be a component of the business, but I don't think it necessarily needs to be everything the business does. An example of the AI and large language models in cancer that I just saw was CancerLink and Concert AI purchasing CancerLink's data and that asset that came out of ASCO, which everyone knows is robust, if not one of the most robust data sets for cancer out there. So I think you'll see some interesting developments, but we still have a little ways to go. Really interested in how, folks like our portfolio company, Cohere Health, are integrating aspects of AI into their workflows, but not necessarily trying to bite off too much as an AI first replacing everything.
Okay, well, last
So
question.
just
Say, go ahead, Daniel.
now, just let me jump in very quickly. I want to kind of reinforce what Jennifer said about the size of these models. I mean, the AI is only as good as the data set it's trained on and the size of the data set. And in this game, I mean, in the US, we're talking about data sets of tens of thousands, maybe. But don't forget that there are companies in China, for instance, that are training their AI on hundreds of millions of patients, hundreds of millions of images, hundreds of millions of X-rays, MRIs, etc. And sooner or later, those are going to prove going to be pivotal in this battle in terms of the data set.
Okay. All right. Well, we're a little minute over the time. I want to be respectful of our panelists' time. I'm sure people can find you easily, right, on your websites if they want to follow up and talk more. I want to thank you, panel, for being here today, investing in cancer therapy startups. I hope you're able to stick around for our presentations. We got some great companies I think you're really going to like. Okay. So, Roger Royce, I'm concluding this panel. We're going to move quickly on to the next one.